This is Adam Williams, and you are listening or perhaps watching to another episode of Retail Redeveloped. I'm being joined today from the cold northern area of Toronto, Canada. We were able to get this set up with no customs issues, which I'm really excited about. I'm being joined by Bram Warfsky. Now, what are we going to talk to Bram about today? We're actually talking to something that has been on the minds of a lot of retailers, a lot of real estate folk, just the market in general, and that's the intersection of AI and marketing and branding. Now, obviously, layman's don't wake up in the morning thinking about how AI works, but it's here. The robots are here, and they're not going anywhere, and we all need to kind of figure this out. So, Bram owns a company called Shelfgram, but he's also came up in consumer packaging. He has a lot of coding influence and things to share with us that I think would be really helpful. So without any further ado, Bram, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I appreciate it. Tell everybody a little bit about who you are, why they should listen to what you have to say, and a little bit about the why behind your business.
Yeah, and thanks for having me on, Adam. And I'll just start off by saying that I, for one, accept our new robot AI overlords. So I started my career in packaged goods, as you mentioned, and really understood, kind of discipline like tier one, packaged goods marketing, and saw how technology was starting to change things. And then, of course, with a rapidly changing retail landscape and the rise of e-commerce, and then now a global pandemic, so much has changed. And the thing that I always struggled with as a brand manager was getting retail visibility, sort of understanding the ground truth of what was actually happening on my business. You're supposed to do these things that the industry calls store checks, where you get out into the wild and see what's happening, with your competitors and, what's actually sort of happening in store, but they're hard to do and nobody does them. And it's hard to get past, the one or two locations around the corner from the office. So I sort of thought, well, maybe there's an opportunity for technology to make that a little easier, where you could travel around the world, go back in time and do something of like a virtual store check, and built a platform. We launched it earlier this year. We've been growing 20% month over month. And recently we added a analytics layer on top of it. So what we realized is that, these pictures that we're gathering, pictures worth 1,000 words, but now with AI, it's 1,000 data points. And we're able to extract all sorts of cool metadata around it, and then parse out sort of the media value of the impressions that each brand is sort of making in store. So that's been our journey so far, and excited to kind of share a little bit about the journey along the way and where we're going.
So obviously a lot of people on this that are listening to this show aren't going to understand why metadata on consumer packaged goods on shelves is a big deal, right? So if you wouldn't mind, go a little deeper and explain to people. Obviously, I know in every retail store, just from some things in my background, that real estate is king on those shelves. Being 6 inches higher, 6 inches lower, or being on an end cap is can make a massive difference. But walk us through a little bit about the why behind why that's so important, and what metrics you're trying to gather, and why a retailer should care about it. I spend a lot of time with breweries and people that are putting their brand of sauces or something like that into a store. So walk me through how your business can be valuable to those type of people, and what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, it's funny when I go grocery shopping. It's obviously a very different experience than a layperson, and just having the knowledge that for every 4 feet of retail at a grocery store, there's like a handful of people whose jobs are to figure out every square inch of how that shelf looks. But it's all super important. When your business is up or when it's down, you can see that in your sales data, but understanding why is really the most important thing. And to what extent is that driven by a new competitive claim at shelf, or price points that are differing, or aggressive private label activity, or like 1,000 other things. And there's just so many dimensions to try to understand. So the industry has really good access to averages in sales data. What's missing is that qualitative piece, and that's why you're supposed to get it into the field, but it's just sort of hard to do. So we've been able to basically provide that as a solution to Fortune 500 packaged goods companies. And in some cases, it's starting to deploy globally as well. So they're starting to say, well, hey, like maybe my brand is doing something really cool in Canada that we can bring to the US or vice versa. Yeah, I think that's kind of a good summary of how it works. But it's a really complex industry, as you know, so it's hard to kind of give an overview on it.
So walk me through your pitch. Walk me through why Toll House or pick a brand name that everybody knows, Arm & Hammer, Johnson & Johnson, somebody like that. Why should they? What is your secret sauce? What can you give them that's going to make them sign up? And obviously, if you're going after Fortune 5s, making any decision is a laborious process, and it's kind of turning a battleship. So walk me through your pitch and why these guys are waking up to what you guys are doing.
Yeah, so one of the cool things about our platform is we actually just have a free plan, and the only way to log in is on LinkedIn. So the way that we've been acquiring customers is folks just kind of sign up, and then this actually happened. We'll call up a Procter & Gamble and say, hey, 30 of your employees are using our software to understand what's happening in their category and on their business with their competitors. Like maybe we should chat about getting you guys on the enterprise plan. But yeah, no, essentially, it's a way
Trojan
to
horse kind of strategy.
Yeah, it's kind of what Box and Zoom and Slack and others have done with like a beachhead into the company and growing from there. But it's sort of a way to mobilize your team. So if everyone's kind of already out there in the field, but currently you're texting each other, pictures, or you get a report from a strategic partner or something, you can put everything into one place and then analyze it. Something that I think they're getting a lot of value on is really kind of this new analytics metric around the media value of the impressions that they're having in store. So of course, right now with retail, we sort of have the legacy metric of sales per square foot and the tyranny of accounting that goes along with that. And then you've got the media value, which is hard to understand, because if I said to a Fortune 500 brand, hey, here's an opportunity to pay for media where you're going to have 100,000 people touch and feel your product for half an hour. Like, what would that cost in media value? And the answer is you can't even buy that in media value. It costs a fortune. But of course, that's not what it's worth. And so there's something that's kind of in between. I think the industry's really struggled to find out what that metric is, and we think we've taken some of the first steps towards that.
So decode that for me, because in my world, obviously sticks and bricks, commercial real estate guy, you wake up thinking about retail, go to bed thinking about retail. We've struggled with this same changing metric. In our world, it is, let's just use Peter Millar as an example, right? A wonderful clothing company based in the Southeast, but making big strides. When they go into a lifestyle center, like a high-end lifestyle center, like a South Park in Charlotte or Avalon in Atlanta, or any of these lifestyle centers you can pick across the country, they are being judged by their sales per square foot. And obviously higher sales per square foot, the happier they are. But I don't think that metric is as cut and dry as it used to be, because even myself, I go into a store, I maybe look and see something. It's not my day to buy it. It's not on sale. It's not the right color. It doesn't fit quite right. What yada yada yada. I go home and I'm targeted by their kind of hunter-gatherer marketing online team, and I might buy next week or next month or next year. And right now, those metrics don't really exist. That store is not getting credit for me seeing it, getting captivated by the window dressing, walking in, having a great store associate explain why this brand works and why it's excellent. And then that's kind of lodged into my brain when I go and purchase a couple weeks later. So it sounds like you guys are wrestling with a different but similar problem in your consumer packaging world.
Yeah, I mean, I think you bring up a great point. It's the reason why all these digital native brands are opening up brick and mortar retail. You see with Peloton and Casper. Yeah, right. It's a marketing channel for them. And we're trying to capture that. It's also the reason why, when you go to shop so many categories within packaged goods, you'll see brands that that are not, pure play packaged goods brands like Starbucks that will, provide, coffee in the aisle next to something like Maxwell House. But your association with Starbucks is different. You've been in the environment, you understand what the brand's all about. You can kind of smell it when you think about it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really hard to quantify that. So the way that we've approached this challenge is every picture that comes on the platform, and we sort of set up what we call pipelines, where we're crowdsourcing a consistent, steady stream of these pictures nationwide. Goes through an artificial intelligence system that puts a heat map on top of it. And what the heat map does is predicts in that first moment of truth, where does the shopper look and what's kind of drawing their attention. And then we kind of add up the number of brand impressions and the quality of those impressions and provide that in a dashboard relative to all of your competitors. So you can kind of see, retailer support by brand, by region, and cut the data a number of ways, and essentially understand where retailers are supporting your brand, where they're not, and identify execution gaps, and ultimately grow your business.
That's it sounds like you found an awesome little niche that some people are going to find very, very effective. Walk me through the future. Obviously, in retail, you're looking backwards is beyond useless. Right now, retail's changing at a faster pace than it has since, I don't know, maybe the car was invented or something. I mean, since the shopping center was invented. And it's different today than it was last week. And grocery absolutely fascinates me. And I know this sounds extremely boring to people that don't do this for a living, but grocery is almost still a legacy brand or format that I can't see a future where it doesn't rapidly change in the next decade.
Right.
I would say that we're in this Instacart kind of metamorphosis of grocery that I frankly don't love using Instacart because I'm a particular guy, and they show up with the wrong avocado or the wrong, God forbid, the wrong beer or something like that. I'm like, man, I should have just gone and bought it myself. So what do you see as the future of grocery? How do you see it evolving over the next 10 years? What do you think the next big changes will be to a layperson on the street that just wants to go get ripe bananas?
Well, I'll caveat this by saying, anytime you make a prediction of the future, let alone one in technology, sometimes they're comically bad, and the internet has a long memory. So please don't judge me for what I'm about to say. But
we're recording this. This is going to be a soundbite. This is going to follow you for the rest of your career.
I don't want to dance circuitously around your question, so I will answer it. I think the most complex interaction that we're seeing is with the rise of e-commerce and all this kind of digital disruption, and consumers are changing and technology is changing. What it's doing is creating an existential threat for brick and mortar. And at the C-suite level, they're no longer asking questions of what does 2% year-over-year growth look like for our business plan. It's do we exist in 20 years? And that's a really scary question. And what that does is it creates a culture of innovation and testing and learning, and that cascades sort of down the corporate ranks into like a middle level manager who wants to reach out to a startup and take a chance on something new. And to a certain extent, the more traditional brick and mortar becomes irrelevant, the more opportunity there is for innovation and for kind of new thinking. And, with every retailer that goes under, there's a whole bunch of square feet that now pops up maybe at a more affordable rate for someone who's got a crazy idea on how to reinvent it. So I sort of hold what seems to be a contrarian view versus a lot of the sort of Silicon Valley minded folks that brick and mortar. I remember these headlines even like last year about this apocalypse and everything's going to go under, and I don't see that happening. I think we're sort of in the golden age of retail. If you allow me maybe one more thought, I remember when I was studying in college, my professor was telling me the airlines were going to go under because the bulk of their business came from business travel, and with WebEx, why would companies send executives around the world? And then of course, what also happened was LinkedIn, and you could connect with all sorts of new people. And on the WebExes, you met more people. And then we entered the golden age of business travel, of course, until the pandemic. And then when I got into industry, people said, oh, TV's dying because social media is going to take all the advertising dollars away. And that happened. But on social media, people also talked about Dexter and their favorite TV shows at the time. And then now we're in the golden age of TV. So as soon as I heard people kind of say, okay, retail is going to die, like e-commerce is going to take over, my immediate thought was, I feel like we're about to get into the golden age of retail.
And do you think the golden age is just going to be driven by the necessity of do something freaking incredible, or, you know, like you said, shutter the doors?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's really I'm reminded of that. I think it's a Warren Buffett quote. It's only when the tide goes out that you find out who's swimming naked.
Mm-hmm.
And in these tough times, even pre-COVID, it's the retailers that hadn't been investing in a lot of this stuff that were experiencing the hardest financial hit. So yeah, it's putting the pressure on. But I'm pretty confident that we're going to get through this, and it's just going to be kind of a weird couple of years. But in the end, retail is going to emerge stronger, and I think there's going to be more people than ever in brick and mortar spaces.
So Bram, I want to hit you with a couple knee-jerk questions.
Mm-hmm.
But before we do that, please tell people how they can find out about Shelfgram, how they can find out about what you guys are doing up in the snowy north, how they can connect with you, how they can get more information on your product, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, check out shelfgram.com. Our users sort of describe us as if like Nielsen or like a heavy enterprise analytics provider met Pinterest. So it's kind of fun. You can sign up, play around in our free plan. It's a pretty generous free plan. So check that out. And then feel free to add me on LinkedIn, message me with any feature ideas. We're always kind of interested to hear what folks are thinking about. And I should mention that although we're focused in packaged goods, on our platform you can find photos from all corners of the retail world, including QSR, automotive, banking, and a number of other channels.
Awesome. So, but before we let you go, talk to me about if you were in the retail world, the consumer packaging world, what is there one thing that you've been able to, or it could be one or two things that you see on a consistent basis that people can improve upon? Is there, obviously there's no magic bullet in this business, but you obviously see a lot of brands, a lot of different cases. Talk to me about like a common thread that you see that people are doing wrong, or could be doing a little bit better that you see as kind of low hanging fruit that people can improve upon.
I think the biggest thing, like by far, is understanding what happens when your strategy turns into execution. And sometimes we're looking at stuff on our platform, and it's very clear the pages of PowerPoint decks that are probably neatly filed away somewhere on SharePoint. And it was a great idea, but as it went through the supply chain and then kind of made it in store, and you see that there's a die line added to the shipper, and your spokesperson is kind of cut in half, or it got stickered over, or sometimes there's things like that, and you're like, okay, well, no wonder that's not working. That issue's obviously happening everywhere. So calibrating your strategy by understanding the ground truth of execution, I think, is something that everyone in the industry can learn from.
That's great. Well, Bram, you've been very, very generous with your time. I always love talking to people that are on kind of the bleeding edge of how marketing and branding and AI are changing. I learn something every single time I talk to somebody with expertise like you. I want to take a second to acknowledge you for coming on, sharing your knowledge and your wisdom with the listeners and the viewers. And I can't wait to hear what's next for Shelfgram. It sounds like you guys have found a great niche.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. No, thanks for having me on. This has been a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thank you.